So I wanted to talk to you guys tonight about buyers. Okay. Um, Sometimes we get somebody, we think they're a buyer, or maybe whatever the scenario is, we stick with somebody for too long, or for a while, thinking they're a buyer, and then they fade away, and we wonder what happened to them, why they went sideways. But there are certain signs of people buying. Okay, and we need to figure this stuff out. Now we know that everybody wants to sell high and buy low, right? Some of you guys have heard my story about the person that I knew that had an amazing pre-approval. We were looking at $600,000 houses, and every house that was 600,000, she wanted to offer 400,000, and that's not legitimate, right? So we have to identify it. So just to start off, I want this to be interactive. So how would you guys, and I'll let you guys start, whoever wants to jump out first. If not, I'm just going to start calling on people. So what would be an indicator that you're working with an actual buyer? Who wants to go first? Martha?
They actually went ahead and got their pre-approval.
How important is having a pre-approval?
Very. Well, you know what price range they're going for.
100%, right? We had the one, sometimes they sound too good to be true, right? Sometimes they are, right? But I told you, I had the one lady, she said, she wanted to look at $3.5 million properties. And I asked for the proof of funds because she said she was paying cash. And she texted me a couple minutes after our conversation, said, "Oh, Chris, I'm sorry. I can't figure out how to send over this proof of funds." Right? Kind of a red flag, right?
Mm-hmm.
But it was followed up with the next sentence was, "I told my financial advisor to give you limited access to my financial accounts." Okay. Is that a buying sign?
Yes.
Absolutely. We had enough for that $4 million purchase and then some. Okay. So that right there is a huge, somebody comes to you, I'm pre-approved, great. Now, a lot of people won't be, as long as they're willing to get pre-approved, right? That's a starting point. All right. What would be another indication of a buyer?
They're actually like communicating with you.
Communicating's a big one, but you got to be careful with the communicating, right? Because there are people, right? Now, I meet a new buyer, right? I for the first time I meet, Lauren. Lauren comes in and she's like, "What? I love looking at houses," right? And I'm like, "Hey, what are you looking for? Or are you enjoying this?" And she's like, "Absolutely, I love looking at houses." Is that a buying sign or is that a shopping sign?
Shopping.
Shopping. I would much rather have that person come into the open house or wherever it is, and instead of saying, "Oh, I love looking at houses," say, "Oh, this is exhausting. All I want to do is find the house and get this over with." Right? It sounds like it's not going to be as much fun, but that's a person that is on a mission that wants to get to buying. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's huge. Who else has something that would indicate them being a buyer?
Time frames.
Time frames? How so?
If they have like some specific goals and time frames, for example, we need to be in a house till August 10 when the kids will go into school, and to set up the kids, we need to be there like at least a month ahead. So if the people have straight goals when they need to be in a new house.
100%. The why, right? The why do they need to be into that house? Why? Because I'm tired of looking at the same paint colors on my walls is not as big of as as a motivator as because I need to be into my house and settled before we start our next school year for my kids. Right? The why is what drives all of us. So if you can get that question, you guys have heard me talk about the who, what, where, when, why, and how. Right? I don't. When I'm having a conversation with people, there are genuine conversations when I just, maybe I'm connecting with somebody and we're having a conversation, and I'll ask them to tell me more about something. But we've all had those conversations with somebody where you're like, oh, would you just please shut up and move on? Right. But in this case, we want those open-ended questions, because as I talk to Martha, as we've discussed before, I know a big part of Martha's why is because she wants to go camping with her grandkids. Right. If I can position her in a place that's close to a lot of local campgrounds, or at least, maybe not campgrounds, but at least easy on and off the highway so she can get to these different campgrounds, would that be something that might be interesting to Martha? Right? So that why is a huge one. Okay. Well, who else has something? Mark, you look like you're about to say something.
Maybe they're retiring and need a place to move to, and they've come down, they've rented for a year, and they need to get out of that apartment and into a place.
Absolutely. They're the why is that, or what in this case would be the change of lifestyle, which also leads into the why. But it's what are they trying to do? They're retiring. They're moving down, from another place, or like some of you guys have heard me talk about the fact that there's a lot of terms in this industry that I don't necessarily agree with. One is when people say my forever home. Has anybody ever heard anybody talk about a forever home?
A million times.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't believe that there's anything that's really a forever home, right? I consider it more your flagship home, right? We all start out with that first house, and it's maybe moderate, 3-bedroom, 1 bath, 2-bedroom, 1 bath, something small as we grow. Then the family grows, our needs grow. We have a bunch of kids, you start having family get-togethers, and all of a sudden you wind up with after a series of getting bigger houses, right? We get to what most people call their forever home, which is going to be typically the biggest home that they will ever own. Right. And they usually spend the most amount of time there, but it's not really a forever home. I consider it the flagship because of the fact that home is what is going to drive their retirement. Right. We had a woman here today. She's 63 years old and she's just buying her first home. Okay. Now, in that particular scenario, she probably won't work through multiple levels. For her, that's her flagship, right? But at some point, she may have to go into an assisted living, right? So at that point, now we're going to use the income from that flagship home to power us into our retirement. Right? Does that make sense?
Sure.
So that's why some of the terms, I understand why they use them. I just don't really believe that that's the best, use, of that home. Right. And if we do it right, that home can really power a lot, into the future. Ellie, did you raise your hand?
I'm sorry, what's my mistake? I'm trying to get acquainted with the.
All right. Well, but here's the problem. When you make a mistake, now you got to bring the next thing. So what would be an indication of somebody looking to buy a home?
An indication.
Yeah, something saying that they're a real buyer.
I will say, I don't know, Zillow searches. I'm sorry that I got late to the conversation. You mean like in person? If we can, how can we tell?
Anything. I know you came in a little late and had to put you on the spot. Ellie's one of our newest members on the team. So, but what would be an indicator? We've talked about the why, the fact that they're coming with a pre-approval. What would be something else if you're talking to somebody that would indicate to you that they are a legitimate home buyer?
I guess from the top of my head, the conversation would just go through there. I can't really think of a specific example right now, Chris. I'm sorry,
Okay.
but I will say the conversation can just channel through the area, maybe something they like about the area. If they have kids, they like the schools, they like I don't know, the area. I mean, we talk to other parents from school, and sometimes
Yeah.
the conversation comes up like, oh, I'm trying to expand. Oh, have you heard of the new estates? Oh, they have new homes back there. They started new construction. So sometimes in the conversation you can tell if people are looking.
Yeah, 100%. So that's going to be more on the discovery side, though.
Okay.
Right. So that's it's a sign, but we're talking about like the things that they're ready, willing, and able. Right. But when they're talking about, schools and things like that, that is definitely an indicator and a reason for us to dig in further, which is actually a great point, because those are things that are going to be important to them. Right.
Yeah.
For anybody that's ever seen me, operate in an open house or when we're in new construction, I allow my clients to tell me about their life. What does their life look like in a perfect world? Right? Everyone here is at different levels and different places in their life. Right? So, Ellie, I know you got a family over there, right?
Yes, we do.
Okay. You got a husband?
Danny.
Yep.
Daniel.
All right. You got any kids?
Yes, we have one son.
One son. Any more in the future, perhaps?
Who knows?
All right, but you got a family, right?
Yes.
What do you guys like to do? What do you like to do when you're not, working?
We have easy access to the beach here, which is really good for us coming from Miami. That in Miami we couldn't think about. I mean, just going to the beach in Miami, the thought of it will entail a lot of a lot of steps, parking, money, food, walking a lot. So here, beach access, we have a lot of parks, free parking, trails. We like to do the trails. We have a lot of playgrounds, children's museum. Naples, this area seems to be very family oriented. So we like to do that when we're not working or in school.
Okay, perfect. Now, with Ellie just talking about just the beach and the pain of the parking and the way how it was to get to the beach in Miami, and talking about the family, the trails, and the museum and all that stuff. Is anybody like starting to feel like the type of lifestyle that Ellie and Daniel are trying to live with their family? Right. I ask these questions because I want you guys to listen to what people are saying. That right there, if a client was telling me that, I'm queuing in. Yes, I understand she's talking about the beach, but I'm hearing the pain points. She came from Miami. She didn't like paying for parking. It was congested. It was hard to get to the beach. Those are pain points, right? That's something that is near and dear to her. She wouldn't have brought that up if that wasn't something that bothered her over there. And if I can find her a path, right, I'm going to create a client for life. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So the who, what, where, when, why, and how, all that stuff is super, super important.
That part of the report that the meeting last week, like building that first is a
Rapport, yeah.
report with the client where you're trying to get more information and exactly to your point, Chris, trying to understand what pain points. I mean, that's a good I'm taking notes as you speak to trying to see and trying to figure out what's the next step and how you can manage that or look for that residence or the next home based on their lifestyle. So I guess I'll call it.
Now, this is we call this foundations, right? Because we have other classes and stuff that get into the nitty gritty, of the various things on marketing and stuff like that, and that's all great, right? We have to market. We have to get out there. We have to get our signs up. We have to get our business cards in front of people. But at the end of the day, we need the foundation for this business. If you're going to stay in this, you have to have the strong foundation. And what we were talking about last week, building rapport, that all feeds into this stuff. If you don't have rapport and you haven't built some sort of commonality, who thinks it's going to be harder to get that pre-approval or that proof of funds or more about the lifestyle they're looking to lead? Right? Is that going to get a little difficult?
Oh yeah.
Without a doubt. We've talked about emotional equity. This stuff all builds that equity, right? Listening to somebody, and right now we're trying to determine whether or not they're a buyer, but ultimately what we're doing is we're listening to them for certain signs, but by listening to them, we're going back and building more rapport, right? This is why I have a client that called me up and he says, Chris, I got 2 properties, right? I got 2 properties. One's commercial, one's residential. I already have the buyer. I just need you to do the sale. I still want to pay you a commission because of all the stuff you've done for me in the past, right? Who doesn't want the client like that calls up and says, hey, I'm going to give you a commission, do the paperwork, right? Now, some people might look at it, oh, it's Chris got lucky, right? He's got, a client that gave him 2 properties to write up and he's going to collect a commission. Or we can look at the fact that for over a decade, I have worked like crazy to make sure I'm creating that value for my clients, right? It's just like a doctor. We don't pay a doctor by the hour because, of the actual physical minutes. We pay them because of their years of experience, right? And for those of you that are sitting here that may not have the years of experience, that's okay. That's why we have a team here, right? I mean, if we counted up all the years of experience that are just on this phone call, there is tons of experience right here, right? And don't sell yourself short. Not only do you have the experience here, but you have the experience of everything in your life that you bring to the table. What makes you different from somebody else? Right? Fallon, what makes you different from another realtor that you'd be potentially going up against in an appointment?
I think I don't know.
Well, this is something that's going to come up, right? So I want you to think about this. Now, I'm putting some of you guys on the spot, and you may not have the answer, and that's fine. But Fallon, you've seen me in the office, right? You've been here, right? If you were going up against me in a, you knew that I was just on a listing appointment, okay? And you knew that, I was the other agent. What do you have right now that you could give to a client that I may not be able to give them? What about your a little additional time, right? You're newer into the business, right? You just recently started with us. You have a little more free time, and right now I have a lot more things that I'm juggling as far as the team and stuff like that. Correct? So I would be focusing on. Listen, I have the backing of this team. However, I have the time, and I'm going to devote my time. When I'm with you, I'm going to devote 100% of my time to making sure that you, Fallon, find the house of your dreams. Would that potentially be something that would be a selling point?
Yes, sir.
100%. Right? I guarantee you, when I go into an appointment, you will never hear me say, call me whenever you like. 24/7, I'm available to you. I'm very deliberate with my time, but you can be a little more flexible when you're building. So use those things, figure out what your advantages are. Fallon, you have a college education, right? You're a smart girl, right? You bring, you bring things to the table, right? So, where does this go into? But this is where, when you build that rapport, we start to identify those signs that they're actual buyers. Make sense?
Yeah.
Anybody else think of anything that would be, a sign that somebody is a potential buyer? All right. What about signs that they're not a buyer?
They just blow you off, like when you call or text.
Well, they may just not be ready yet. Right? They might not be ready yet. So, we've had people in our system for a couple of them now that have been in our system for over 2,000 days. Now, I don't want to put my next paycheck on somebody that's going to wait 2,000 days to buy a house, but they might not just be ready. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to follow up with them and make sure I'm providing the value, right? What is it that they need right now, right? Some of you guys have small kids or grandkids, right? We're coming into summer. You've heard me say this before. If you can provide a link to youth activities for anybody that their kids are ending school right now, okay, that's huge, right? I have a client that their kids are big into basketball. I sent them every basketball court I could find, links to youth centers and stuff like that, right? So that may just be a not ready just yet. But what about if they're impulsive, right? Has anybody ever had somebody buy a large ticket item on credit while they're in the process of buying a house?
Oh, yeah. Especially if you tell them not to make any big purchases so they don't mess up their credit.
We have a client, right? Or a customer, I guess you'll call him. And he's a nice enough guy. I've known him for about 5 or 6 years. And since I've met him, he keeps telling me he wants to buy a house and wants to buy a house. And every time he's like, man, Chris, I sold everything off. I'm ready to buy a house. And then I hook him up with the lender, and the lender's like, he just bought a $19,000 motorcycle. I'm like, dude, stop buying motorcycles. He says it was a deal that was too good to pass up. I'm like, that's not going to help us here. If you want to get the house, stop buying motorcycles. All right? I mean, it sounds funny, but folks, this stuff happens. Right? What would be another sign that they're not a buyer? Mark?
I would say that they don't have the funds to put down.
Yeah, they ain't got no funds. Now, we do have some programs and we can, finagle some stuff, but I guarantee you, I would much rather, work with that person that has the 20% plus to put down over the person that says, I got $37 in my bank account. Right. And now I'm trying to figure out 100% products and how we can get them. We try and help people as much as we can. But as I've said before, we cannot want this more than our clients. When we want this more than our clients, we get commission breath. Right. And it's known, that it's about the commission, and the sales will be, if you get them, will be extremely painful. What about unrealistic expectations? Has anybody ever encountered anybody that has unrealistic expectations?
Absolutely.
Heather, you want to give us an example?
Oh my gosh. Yes. Like when you get that person that is coming in and they said, oh, they don't want to rent, they want to purchase, and then they want to lowball everybody by like $50,000 to $75,000. I'm like, you're not going to get a house that way.
Yeah. Yeah.
So the lowballing is ridiculous. Not in this market. Still not in this market. Not like that.
Yeah. Unfortunately, just like that pre-approved buyer that I was showing $600,000 houses and that wanted, to pay $400,000. And when I asked her why she wanted to offer $400,000, well, that's what I want to pay. Well, let's look at $400,000 houses. Now I want a $600,000 house. it's not being realistic. Now, am I afraid to put in a low offer if I can see that the comps don't support the price? No, I'm going with the house, with the price that makes sense. And sometimes you need to let your buyers lose a house.
Amen.
Right? Unfortunately, I mean, pain is a hell of a teacher. Right? They find that perfect. It's a 4-bedroom, 3-bath. It's a split, floor plan with an ensuite with the guest room. It's got all the trimmings, the perfect backsplash. They wanted the perfect cabinets, the counters, or the whole bit. And they want to do something stupid like offer $50,000 below list price when it, and you're not, and you're in a listing market, right? Sometimes you try and talk them into being realistic, but sometimes you can't. And you have to let them experience the pain of that loss. Martha, what were you going to say? You're muted. Still muted, Martha.
Now that they've come out with the most overpriced towns, and Jacksonville's 30% over what everybody else is in Florida, are the buyers going to come back out now and say, well, we just need to offer them 30% less because the news told us that it was 30% over?
Okay, but we have to dive into that a little bit more, okay? Because is it higher priced? Possibly, and I know it is. But why is Jacksonville a higher priced area than some of the others?
We got a lot of new businesses coming in, and a lot of people are moving into it.
Okay, all right. So new businesses: Jacksonville, Miami, Tampa, Orlando. Okay, these are metropolitan areas. They are going to command a premium because of the convenience of shopping, things to do. Jacksonville has an airport, right? Jacksonville has, it's still close to the, to the water. It's got, infrastructure. A lot of businesses are setting up shop in the Jacksonville area, right? Daniel and Ellie are here. They're down in Naples, right? What is, take away everything else. Just look at a map. What does Jacksonville have that Naples does not?
Navy bases.
Well, it is Navy bases down south too. But what about actual routes, shipping routes?
Well,
right?
we're right in the middle of 95 and Atlantic.
Absolutely. So for businesses, a lot of businesses, if there's a physical component, Jacksonville is going to be much more desirable. Naples, on the other hand, doesn't have the shipping routes, but it's absolutely gorgeous. Right? The water, Ellie was just talking about, being able to go down to the beach and all that stuff. And if you're a resident, you get free parking, right? So, there's pros and cons. So I want to play to, what is the most important. And again, we have people from all over the place right here. So you need to be, paying attention and picking the brains of your fellow agents because of the fact that, we have so many different personalities here in Florida, right? For me, when I came here, right, I chose the Vero Beach area because of the physical proximity to everything else. I knew that when we built this team, we were going to expand across the state. I knew that I was going to spend a lot of time in my car. I knew that I didn't want to be 45 minutes off of a main highway. Right. So where I live is 8-10 minutes off of 95. And it's 3 hours pretty much to anywhere in Florida that I want to be. So for me, that was important. Right. And for each of you, think about what made you choose the area that you're in. Right. Why is Jacksonville worth an extra 30%? In a couple minutes, you can be into Georgia, right? Yeah. You have, for some people that's important, right? You can go all over the place. Another thing I hear about Jacksonville all the time is it gets all 4 seasons.
Sorta.
Well, sort of.
Yeah.
But in comparison to Miami, it gets all 4 seasons,
Yes.
right? Can we agree on that? So, so why does it command that? So just because it's more expensive, right? That's what the market bears in that location. I know a lot of corporations that are setting up shop in Jacksonville, which means higher priced wages, right? That's one of the reasons why the Florida real estate market is so strong right now, right? We all know what happened here back in 06, right? And the market got went to garbage. But what did we have here in Florida prior to 06? It was all vacation and retirement homes, right? And we know when the economy gets tight, you let go of your vacation homes. And then when it gets really tight, you tell your parents to come off of their, extended vacation and come back home wherever they're from. So Florida got decimated with that. But they realized that, and all of a sudden, we have actual working age people. Most of us are right here, right? Working age people that are living and developing lives here in Florida. That's why I asked about the life. Ellie talked about the beach. Martha's doing the camping, right? And each one of us has a different way that we want to live, right? I love my motorcycles, but I'm not going out and spending $19,000 every time I get a random thought. Right? I mean, does that make sense? So anybody else have any thoughts or anything that you'd want to be careful of, when you're dealing with a potential or a non-buyer?
Just don't take them out at night.
Well, yeah, you want to be careful going out at night. I don't like going out at night because of the fact that you can't get a good feel of the outside of the house. But unfortunately, when we get into those winter months where it gets dark earlier, sometimes it's the only option you have. But if you're going to go out at night and you don't know your client, take somebody with you. It's just common safety concerns. Make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
On the opposite side of that, when we're looking at sellers, right? I've said it before and I'll say it again. My favorite listing appointment to go on is when I show up at a house and is usually with a couple, and one of the couple tells me, "I just want you to know I don't like realtors." Right? Honestly, who would be off put if somebody met you at the door and said that they didn't like you?
Oh, definitely.
Absolutely not. I understand why you would feel that way, but I would much rather you tell me exactly what you think. Right? Then I know where I'm at. And every time I've had somebody say, "I don't like realtors," I even had one guy say, "I don't," just so you know, and he didn't know my background. He said, "I just want you to know, I don't like realtors and I don't like cops." I'm like, you know what? We're going to get along just great. Right? And I told him, I said, "Look," and as I do every time, I am here to give you some information about the home selling process. And if when I leave here, you feel that you have more information than when I got here, I will have done my job. Can we agree that's fair?
Sure.
And every time I've done that, I have gotten the deal. There was one time when I didn't, and that wasn't because I lost it. It was because of circumstances that they chose not to move. Okay.
Yeah.
But you want to look for these signs. If somebody's willing to meet with me and they don't like realtors, that's a good sign. They need something.
Mhm.
So I understand why, everybody would hold up their hand, but I want you to challenge yourself to not take that as a bad thing. Okay. We have, what do we have? 360 million people in this country, right? And on average, to make a very good living, you need to find 36 that are willing to buy and sell with you each year. Right? I think your odds of finding 36 people are a lot better than, than a lot of the other things, playing lotto or whatever else you can do. Right? It's all about the connections, building the rapport, identifying the signs, right? Right. Having realistic expectations. I'll tell you one of the tricks that I use when I'm dealing with those people that are being just arrogant, they know everything. Oh, I watched and I've actually had this multiple times. I know about buying houses. And this is usually comes from people in their early to mid 20s. I've done this before. Oh, how many houses have you bought? Well, I was 16 and I helped my parents buy their house. No, you didn't. You sat by while they signed some documents. That's not you helping, right? But they know everything about buying a home. So what I'll do is I will casually just let them know, hey, listen, by all means, it's obvious that you're educated, but let me just fill you in on a little information. And I will give them the information on the market, right? On the housing market and the whole bit. And I'll just leave it as a conversational tool and I will leave. I will check back with them in about 2 days. And almost like clockwork, they will regurgitate the same information that I just gave them as their information, like they're telling me something. And I just laugh. I'm like, all right, cool, let's roll. Right? But it's about building it. And if you're, it's like being in a fight. Right. And some of you guys, we've talked about this, right? You've seen, Mike Tyson's getting ready for another fight. There was a time when he got punched in the mouth for the first time. And I guarantee you when that happened, he got, knocked off balance. Even Mike Tyson, the first time he ever got hit, got knocked off balance. Right. But now he's one of the top fighters of all time. Right. And when he gets hit, it's not that big of a deal. It's the same way here. And you need to be prepared for those objections because the first time you get an objection, it's going to take you off guard. Right. And you're going to be like, whoa, I didn't see that one coming. But as you see the objection more often and you start to see other objections, right? Then when the random objection that you're not really ready for hits you, it's still an objection. And you handle it like the rest. So you get more and more in tune with what you're trying to accomplish. Does that make sense? Has anybody ever had an objection just knock them completely off base? Yeah, I've had it happen, right? And there's still things that I'll have to think about or I'll have to go get an answer, but I'm not as reactive anymore. Make sense?
Mm-hmm.
So who has a buyer right now that you're struggling with? Lauren?
Yes, I have actually two.
Okay.
Well, my first one has no money, so he needs the programs to cover his down payment as well as his closing costs. But he has to be out of his place that the day that the funding reimburses. So we're trying to finagle that one.
Okay.
And
So let's just stop there for a second. So on one hand, we already said not having cash is a deterrent, but now we have somebody that has to be out of his home. Right? Is that a motivator?
yes.
So now this is where it's going to come in. We need to solve some problems here. All right. It may not be the most fun transaction you've ever had, Lauren, but I guarantee you're going to learn something on this one. Right?
I already have.
Yeah, and as you will, right? But so we have very little money, and he does have some money. It's not like he's completely broke. We just have to get him to a point, where he can buy. Now, this is where it comes in handy to know our different counties, our are different, lenders and lending programs. Certain lenders have different programs, and that, Lauren, that's why I said, let's talk about it. If Kyle, Kyle can't handle this because he needs too much, we have a local lender right here in Indian River County that has a true 100% product and access to a $12,500 grant. So we can flip them over to him or to her if need be.
Yeah.
Okay. So, and you already met her, by the way. So, so we may want to have that conversation. So
Okay.
who was the other buyer?
So the one I showed on Saturday to a condo, which it's listed at 225, and she wants to make an offer on it for 170 because she's like, this place needs so much work, which it does, but that's 55,000 under asking, so I don't even know if that's definitely insulting to the buyer.
Well, okay. So it depends on how we, to the seller, you mean, right?
Yeah.
That's going to come down to how we present it, right? We can go simply, hey, you're overpriced, take that offer, right? And then, yes, it becomes offensive. Or we can do our due diligence and be the professional, right? Let's do a CMA on the property and see what that property would go for in pristine shape. Renovated to today's, what it should be in that area. Obviously, depending on the price point, it's going to determine the level of finishes. But if we see that you said it's listed at 225,
Yes.
all right. If we see other renovated homes are at 225 and this one needs $75,000 worth of work, and I can justify that, then I have no problems. I'll say, hey, look, and I will, with the offer, I will present the comps as well as a recommended, course of work, and say, look, based on these comps and the work that needs to get done, this is why we're presenting this offer.
Okay.
Now, you may not get it, but at least you've done your due diligence and presented that offer to where it's not as offensive, right? And you're actually showing your client, once again, every opportunity that you have is a chance to win. And if you take that client that wants to put that $50,000 low offer and you do that CMA and you show those comps and you present the scope of work and present it, even if you don't get the offer, you have now solidified yourself in that client's mind as the professional that they want to work with in the future. Because I guarantee you, the other agents out there are not doing that. Make sense?
Definitely.
Does that help?
Yeah, for sure.
Awesome.
I'm gonna do the CMA tonight and then I'll let her know. But yeah, that just happened right before the meeting.
Okay. All right. Well, put it together, do your due diligence, and roll from there.
Cool.
Who else has a buyer they're working with? Heather?
Yes, I've got a couple, but this one that I'm working with right now, I mean, I found out one of the reasons why she wanted to bid lower, Chris, but so you guys, I have a client that literally just went under contract tonight with their home up north and they're buying down here. She's been down here. We looked at homes. She has a couple that she loves, but she loves this one and she wants to put in what did we come down to? Oh, so it was 23,000 under list. The house has been on the market 2 weeks. Let's put it this way. The comps support the price and the home. Now I've told her, explained to her, because she just got over what, Chris, $75,000 more than appraised value for her own home.
Yeah, $75,000 above on her selling.
Yep. But she wants to offer still $18,000 less on this one. Well, these folks are still kind of a little iffy with even having a home sale contingency. But I wanted to know, what is the reason? And that was the question, right? Because you've always told us, ask the reason, not just like, God, I got to put in this offer. I want to know, what is the reason for them going $18,000 under? And I told her, I said, the comps support it. You do not want to, want this house enough and you send them a lowball offer, they can turn around and just say goodbye. They don't have to counter. They don't have to work with you. And if you lose your house, that house that you want, you know, I don't know what else to tell you. Like you said, they sometimes just need to lose it. Well, anyway, I'm going to talk to the agent, but and I told my client to think about it, and I need to see all the details on hers. But $18,000 under is not going to get her this property. I can tell you that right now.
Okay.
If I was the listing agent, I would say absolutely not. And I've tried to explain this to her, but I know she has other options, and I really think it's going to take them losing it. But now they're in a time crunch, so we will see.
What the way I would
But what
paint
was the reason? I forgot to tell you what the reason was.
what was the reason?
So I found out why she was, because they were looking at getting that, you know, original list price. And if they did get that original list price, if they have their house for sale and they spent the money on a full list down here of what they want, they were going to have to finance like $70,000, $80,000. And they didn't want to have to do that. So that was one of the reasons. But now that they're getting more, she still wants to offer low. So I'm really not sure what's going on, but go ahead.
So what I would bring to them is, you know, now they're under contract on their home in New Jersey.
Mm-hmm.
And I believe that one is cash and there's no appraisal contingency.
That's right.
Right. So when you have a home under contract, and there's no contingencies and there's no way for you to get out of it, as a seller, you are now contractually bound, just like the buyer is, to sell that home. And if you choose not to go forward on the sale of your home, that buyer can sue you. And if you want to know how I know that this will work, because we've done this, okay, we did this for a client where the seller backed out 2 days before settlement. My buyers were on their way here for from where were they?
God, I remember that. That's horrible.
Yeah, they would come from Las Vegas to Florida. Stuff was in the truck, and the seller decided, man, we're not selling. Okay, and we got them a nice little, package. But all right, it is a contractual obligation for them to sell. So my point behind making a point of this is the fact that at that point, there's going to be some pain going forward. So now, how much pain are you, Mr. and Mrs. Buyer, willing to accept if you lose this house? Now you want to go in $18,000 or $20,000, $25,000 below cost or below list price, when I've already shown you that this is what the value of this home is. Okay, you just got $75,000 above list price on your home, right? Is it really logical that the other sellers are going to take that much lower when we can show the value on that home? It's not likely, right? But how much pain are you willing to endure when we have to go find you another comparable house, and there may not be one at this price point, because that one had some pretty nice amenities, right? So
this one had everything. Everything had been replaced. It was super fancy, and it had all the space she needed. And I even did back-to-back comparisons with like or side-by-side comparisons with the one that was $50,000 less, because, you know, I took them to something that they really weren't looking at that high, you know, but they kept on saying they were going to have to get rid of furniture. They were going to have to do this. And I knew that their house was going to sell. Well, I didn't know if it was going to sell, but I knew what they were listing their house for. And I knew what she had, owed on it. So I knew that she had the cash. She kept on complaining about the smaller houses. So I was like, you know what, let me just go ahead and go up a little bit. Her husband wasn't excited about me bringing them to see, but now they want it. They're like, we cannot see ourselves with the smaller house now. So, but they want it for the price of the smaller house. So that's the problem I'm having.
And this is the exact reason why we don't show people houses until we know what they can afford, right? Because in this case, they can afford it. And
Yes.
If they choose to go to a smaller house, that's on them. But if you're showing houses to somebody at a $500,000 price point to find out that they're only approved at $350,000 or $400,000, they are never going to like that house at $350,000 or $400,000 after falling in love with the $500,000 house. So you are doing yourself and your client a disservice by doing it that way. Make sense?
Absolutely.
Anybody else have any other buyers that they want to discuss? Nobody? Okay. We have one. I'm going to bring this up. Just came in, right? And so she is a disabled veteran. Okay. You guys know I do a lot of stuff with veterans. Now, she's on a fixed income. She has 100% disability from the VA, and she's on Social Security. Originally, when she came in, she wanted to rent. Okay. She said her budget was $2,500 a month. We're here in Florida. She's 100% disabled. She has enough money to cover a $2,500 a month payment. Who thinks it makes sense for her to buy or to rent a property? Heather, you think it makes sense?
Absolutely. Oh, not to rent, to own.
Yeah, to own 100%.
Yeah.
Right. What are some advantages? All right. She served her country. She has 100% disability from her, from the VA. What are some of the advantages that she can use to her advantage to purchase a home?
First of all, she's not going to have to pay property taxes.
Right. Now, for some of you guys are newer, so you won't understand this, but it used to be you used to still have to fill in the property taxes or use the property taxes when figuring out the total payment. Then once they got in, they would file and take the payment, take those taxes off, but they would still have to have them for the pre-approval. Okay. Now, if they're 100% disabled, permanent, you don't have to take that into account for the pre-approval anymore. That comes off immediately. Okay. Who thinks that can help our pre-approval?
Mhm.
Right. That could be depending on where and what. I mean, that could be $3,000, $4,000, $10,000 a year, depending on the area we're going to. That could be huge. What's another advantage? They don't even have to be, what if they have 50% disability? Is there any perks to using a VA loan and buying a house at that point?
Yes. Yes.
What?
No funding fee.
No funding fee. Okay.
Mhm.
All right.
And oh, go
All
ahead. I'm
right.
sorry. Let me
What
stop.
is, Martha, what is the funding fee?
It's what they have to pay towards purchase.
Yeah, but what's the purpose of the funding fee? Mark?
I don't do much in the VA, so I couldn't help you with that one.
Okay. Anybody want to jump in? The VA loan, the funding fee takes the place of your PMI. So with a VA loan, there is no PMI, right? Your mortgage insurance. Okay. So that's another reason why the VA loan is much more affordable. But now you take into account the fact that 1, she has no property tax, 2, no funding fee, which is, right, what is it, 2.7% on your primary, your first purchase, and I think it's 3.5 on every purchase after that. Okay, so basically right around 3%. So they're saving 3% on the purchase of the house. Right? Does that make it more advantageous to buy a home?
Yes.
What's that, Heather?
Oh, I'm sorry. I said yes. I'm agreeing.
Yeah. All of a sudden, we're getting a lot of things, and it's making it very, very affordable for that veteran. Now, going back to the rental, right? She would have to, potentially have rental increases, for however long she rents, right? Where if we get a mortgage, 30-year fixed, do we have to worry about the rent going up? No. And she's on a fixed income. She can very easily budget her money going forward. So now we're going to set her up. She's going to come back in. She wants to meet with the lender in person, and we got to think a 675 credit score. So does 675 get us to where we need to be for a VA loan?
Yes.
Yeah. So all we have to do is make sure the DTI is okay and the income's okay. But I know she has no car payment. She has no, according to her, no credit card payment. So we're looking pretty good, coming out the gate. Now, if she was not a veteran, do we have any 100% products that we can use, to get our people into a home?
Yes.
What's a 100% product that we have out there?
USDA.
USDA, absolutely. It's a great one. There are some restrictions, right? Income and location, right? So not every place in Florida accepts them. A lot of the inside areas, will accept them. So not every place here will, they won't, not that it won't accept them. They don't qualify. Okay. Now, when you get into our different loan products, we have some grants. We have the Heroes program that's coming up. It's getting ready to be refunded. That's a grant up to $35,000. We can use that for down payment. South State Bank has a true 100% product that is for non-veterans. Navy Federal has a true 100% product for non-veterans. Now, you still have to be eligible to become a member of Navy Federal, right? But what does it take to become a member of Navy Federal? It just takes a family member that was military. Okay? So there are products out there. This is why it's important to ask questions when you're when you're here on these calls, when every one of you, I'm sure, is getting calls from lenders, asking for your business. Tell me about what you offer. What makes you different? Well, I do an FHA loan and a conventional loan. Okay, great. So does everyone else. What makes you different? Why should I use you for my loans as opposed to somebody else? Make sense? The bottom line is, right, we have varying different levels of experience on this call, and that's great. It gives us different perspectives, okay? But I guarantee you it does not matter if you're in the business for a day, a decade, a century, whatever it is. There will always be something that you don't know. Okay?
Amen.
Right? I learn things all the time. All right? As you will, as long as you stay in this business. When you close yourself off and you feel that you don't know any, or you don't need to learn anything else, it's time to, hang it up and go someplace else. So I know we're right at the top of the hour. Does anybody have anything else that they want to throw in there? Any questions that you want to get out there you need help with? Okay. Well, does everybody feel that they got a little something out of tonight, hopefully?
Absolutely.
Awesome. Guys, I do this because I want every one of you to succeed, and I'm super excited. As you can see, we're getting more people to jump on here. You guys are taking accountability and ownership of your careers, right? I've told every one of you I can provide all sorts of stuff. Nobody can provide for you a work ethic and the will to push forward, right? This is the single greatest industry in the country. We drive the economy of the United States. Right? I mean, it's pretty powerful when you start to realize that every sale, you've heard me say it before, $115,000 into the United States economy on every sale on average, and 37 jobs are created or kept. All right? It's huge. We're the only industry that gets to say that we do that. Not even the stock market. All right? So this is huge, and you are building wealth for people that they will take that flagship home and hopefully take that into years of retirement and fund it and enjoy a great life. And that's something you guys get to help people with. So you have to embrace that and realize how strong this really is. All right. So let's get out there. Let's identify some buyers, have some conversations, build some relationships. And I'm super excited. Anybody else excited?
Yeah.
All right, guys. It's 7 o'clock. I'll let everybody out of here. And if you need anything, you know where to find me. And I will talk to everybody here real soon.